All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the panel discussion on Tizen, Past and Future. My name is Brian Warner. I am the manager of the Tizen project at the Linux Foundation, and I've been involved with it for 3 years now, really since the very beginning. So I've had a lot of opportunity to see just a lot of development and a lot of progress on Tizen. And if you've been to any of the other sessions here this week, they've largely been about technical matters. This session is about context. The whole point of this panel discussion is to give you an idea of where Tizen has come from and where we see it going. And we have a number of panelists here who are in a good position to talk to you about that. Before we get started, though, just out of curiosity, who here is deeply familiar with Tizen? Got a few. Who would like an overview? All right, we can do that. So just to give you a little bit of history, Tizen is one of 12 collaborative projects at the Linux Foundation. It's a project that's hosted by the Linux Foundation, much like we do for the Linux kernel. And to put it in a nutshell, the idea is that the Linux Foundation handles as much as we can so that the participants in the project can just worry about the code and the strategy. So we work very, very closely with Samsung and with Intel and with other members of the Tizen community here. We also work very closely with the app developers and platform developers because they are also important members of the community. When you look at the overall Tizen ecosystem, there are a few main organizations that you'll see. Of course, there's Samsung, and of course, there's Intel. There's the Linux Foundation, and we work on the open source project that you'll find at tizen.org. And then there's also the Tizen Association, who their role is commercialization and preparing the market for Tizen. So we are separate and distinct organizations, although we do work very closely together. And if you look over the past 3 years, when you look at Tizen, from the very start, the whole idea has been, let's create an operating system that can be used for any number of arbitrary devices. Now, some of them get more airplay than others. Obviously, everybody likes to talk about phones, but as you've seen over the past year, there have been a lot of different Tizen devices that have come out, and these are really the first fruits of this strategy actually showing up in the marketplace, and Sungjin will be able to tell us more about this in a bit. My main point, though, is that this is very consistent with the idea behind Tizen. Essentially, let's create a common platform that can be used for any number of devices, regardless of the device's capabilities, screen size, whatever. So with this in mind, I'm going to be talking to the panelists about a lot more than just mobile phones. And really, the goal of this session is to leave you with a better understanding of Tizen, why it exists, its future, and of course its directions as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Actually, I'll have them introduce themselves. Mark, why don't you go first?
So, hi everybody. My name is Mark Sage. I'm a platform manager within Orange. Orange is an operator in Europe and also in some emerging markets around Africa generally. If I use the term operator, apologies, it means carriers. So I'm a Brit, so a bit of translation there. I'm also the chairman of the operations for the Tizen Association. Orange has been a member for about 3 years of the Tizen Association.
Great. Sungjin?
Hi, nice to meet you folks. I'm leading the Samsung developer relations team and to evangelize Samsung developer ecosystem. And also, I have been involved from the beginning to build up the Tizen ecosystem with Intel and Linux Foundation and Tizen Association members to establish the healthy ecosystem.
Okay. Mahesh?
Hi, my name is Mahesh Bhan. I work for Intel, specifically within Open Source Technology Center at Intel. My responsibilities, I manage Tizen from Intel's side, which means product development, product management, customer partner enabling for Tizen.
Okay. And Corey?
Hello, I'm Corey Johnson. I'm a field engineer with Unity Technologies, and we are a cross-platform development environment that you can build interactive apps with. So
I believe you actually describe yourself as the field engineer of Doom.
yes, that's my official title.
Okay. Just so we're all clear, don't mess with him. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I think probably the best way to start this panel would just be to go down the line and just ask each one of the members, can you please describe just what's your history with Tizen and what's your involvement with Tizen? Let's start with Sungjin.
Okay. Samsung remains committed to develop Tizen ecosystem with a wide range of Tizen-based products, such as camera, wearable, and mobile devices and TVs, and actively working with Tizen Association members to further develop the Tizen, not only Tizen OS, but also the Tizen ecosystem together.
Okay, Corey.
Yeah, so Unity and Samsung have a really strong partnership, and one of the cornerstones of that is that we support the Tizen platform amongst our cross-platform development. So we bring all of our tool set to it and make it easy for anybody who's developing content to develop for Tizen platform.
Mahesh.
So along with Samsung, Intel was one of the founding members of Tizen. We've been involved with Tizen right from day one, basically, writing a lot of Tizen code. We also have a history on many other versions of Linux, ranging from, embedded, client, data center, cloud technologies, you name it, pretty much across the segments of computing. And we bring that expertise into Tizen. And specifically in the recent past, we have been focused a lot on the common portions of Tizen that go across profiles, as well as developing the IVI profile for Tizen, which is making quite a bit of progress.
And Mark.
So I've been involved with Tizen Association for about 3 years, but Orange has been supporting it and the concept of an open source platform, and for the ability for us to be able to customize it, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we have been board members of the Tizen Association, and in fact, vice chairman of the association as well.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. My first question is going to be for Sungjin here. And it's been said, actually it was said by somebody at Intel, if you wait to build an operating system until the day that you need it, you're already 3 years too late. So with that in mind, why is Samsung involved in Tizen? What's the long-term strategy here?
Okay, we understand the consumer's preference can vary greatly. Thus, Samsung has a multi-platform strategy. And Tizen can be a good platform because Tizen is designed as an open and flexible and cross-platform platform. In mobile, Samsung has a holistic experience from the developing OS to commercialize the product.
And I would actually ask the same question to Mahesh too, for Intel, because really, being one of the founding members, there was clearly a long-term goal there. So what is the long-term goal, and why is Intel involved in Tizen?
So, I like to frame that answer in two key trends in the industry today. And, I don't think those trends are unique to Intel in any way. It probably applies to everybody here in this room. So the first trend is open source. Why is Intel involved with open source? Intel has been involved with open source for about 20 years now. And as I mentioned, it's across segments, whether you're talking servers, you're talking cloud technologies, you're talking PC clients, you're talking mobile devices, you're talking embedded segments, you name it, open source is everywhere, open source is pervasive. What we try to do is that our goal is really to enable our features of our platforms, in the software ecosystem. And by focusing on open source technologies, we are able to bring our products to market faster, and we are able to help our customers bring their products to market faster. For us, it's simply drive innovation faster. Now, if you see where open source stands today, if you kind of look back 10 years, where was open source? Maybe Linux on desktop, a little bit here and there. Look at it today. Most of the data centers of the world run open source technologies. It's not whether they're running the whole platform is open source. Either the whole platform is open source, in many cases the components of open source are getting used. If you're going on Amazon.com or you're browsing, chances are 90% plus that you're actually using open source code. So open source has evolved. Open source is pervasive today. And very important for Intel to actually optimize that open source for our platforms. So that's what we do. The second key trend today is Internet of Things. And one way of looking at Internet of Things, it's a bunch of smart devices talking to each other. They're smart because they have connectivity. They can, recognize each other. They can communicate to each other. And where the world is going, and you can look at various analyst numbers, but in general, there are going to be billions of these connected and smart devices in a few years' time, 2020-ish. What better OS platform to leverage that opportunity than Tizen that actually runs in most of those, and most of these billions of devices are not coming from one device category. This is a spectrum of devices, and you need an OS platform that actually helps you, or especially from a developer community, how do they monetize their investment across these device categories? And that's what Tizen brings to the table, and that's why we are in Tizen.
That makes sense. So speaking of monetization and in general, ecosystem, Mark, talk a little bit about the role of the Tizen Association and how they fit into this ecosystem.
Yeah, certainly, Brian. So the Tizen Association is a collaboration of some of the biggest tech companies in the world. From an operator carrier perspective, we have Orange and Vodafone within Europe, NT Docomo from Japan, SK, KT, and LG Plus from Korea. There's also some connected device manufacturers, obviously Samsung, Huawei, and Fujitsu, and Intel from the chipset manufacturers. We also have a pretty robust ecosystem of partners. We've got over 100 partners now, which are kind of application and software developers and toolset makers and things like that. And kind of our aim really is to support the launch of Tizen devices by really raising awareness for the ecosystem and its members. We work a lot with the community and the Linux Foundation and really offer guidance from a business perspective on the future direction of Tizen. We've facilitated Tizen's presence at MWC for the last 3 years and supported the launch of the Gear devices that run Tizen. Hosted and supported a number of successful Tizen developer events in the US, in Korea, and in China as well.
Thank you. And of course, the ecosystem isn't complete until you talk about developers and developer tools. So, Corey, can you tell us a little bit about Unity SDK for Tizen and what's happened so far and what plans are for the future? Any that you can talk about?
Sure. So we currently actually have it running up on the bottom backend and stuff like that. We have quite a few beta users. We're in the process of actually updating it to the new EFL backend. And did I get that right? ELF? Yeah. Sorry. And so we're in the process of doing that, but we're bringing our entire tool chain and all of our entire SDK and all of our tools to it. So it'll be just as easy as ever to use Unity to develop for the Tizen platform.
And that's certainly very important. I know there are a lot of developers out there that use runtimes like Unity, and the whole idea being write it once and hopefully run it anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about devices. And as we talked about there, this was actually a very big year for Tizen, and a number of devices were actually commercialized. And Sungjin, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Since 2013, we have launched first Tizen-based camera. It is NX300, and latest one is NX1. And also, we have launched the wearable device such as Gear 2 and Gear S. You've got already as a giveaway this conference. And NX1 is optimized with the Tizen OS, and it gave a good impression to the consumer with this extra fast boot up time, less than 1 second. And also, Gear series is leading the wearable industry with 70%, more than 70% market share in first quarter of this year. This shows Samsung has successfully launched a Tizen-based device in the market.
Yeah, and the NX1 is a pretty impressive device. Yeah, and there were a couple others in there as well, the NX30 and the NX300M.
Right.
Yeah, all very impressive devices. On the other end, though, Mahesh, let's talk a little bit about Intel and Tizen IVI, because that is one area that Sungjin didn't really cover, but it's been a big focus area for Intel. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so when we say IVI, it's in vehicle infotainment. in general, we're referring to the connected car. So what is Tizen doing for connected car? And if you see connected car as a platform, it actually has some very unique requirements. And those unique requirements, pretty much you can address those unique requirements with any software platform. The good news is that Tizen actually has a bottoms-up effort to deal with those requirements that are really unique to automotive. I'll talk to a few of those. For example, fast boot, right? In a car today, you go into a car and you have your infotainment system. You turn on the key. Most OEMs are expecting that you're at an application launch time in less than 5 seconds. Now, this is not what you basically see on a mobile device, for example, or on a desktop, right? The boot times are higher. So some of the choices, technology choices that we have made in Tizen have been driven by the fact that, okay, you'll need to deal with, for example, a less than 5-second boot time and a less than 2-second. When you turn on, you need to be able to see through your rear view camera in less than 2 seconds. Talking about another key requirement, for example, multi-user. In a car, you can very easily envision a scenario you're driving and using the navigation system or the infotainment system, but your kid in the back of the car is watching a movie. So you need multiple users to use the system at the same time, but you also need those multiple users to have different set of privileges because you don't want your kid to do something that can basically cause a crash. So you need simultaneous multi-user. You need those multiple users with different set of privileges. If you look at Linux in general, most of, if you, for example, a Linux stack is dealing with a device through Bluetooth, most of it is actually, things are at a system level. You don't have a notion of user built in so that you can differentiate between this Bluetooth device from this Bluetooth device. But those are the kind of requirements that automotive or connected car has made us think. And again, we're putting some fundamental plumbing into Tizen to deal with those kind of scenarios. Multiple displays. Most high-end cars today have 3 or 4 displays, and you need a very efficient graphics subsystem to deal with that. So again, there have been choice of technologies in Tizen which have been made just to deal with it. Also at the same time, there's a general expectation that you are able to bring the whole web ecosystem into a car. Through HTML5. Now, do we have enough support in HTML5 to deal with the nuances of a car, the network of the car, and how do you actually, there are millions of data points within the car that an application could potentially tap into. How do you expose that through web applications? And there are efforts in Tizen actually to standardize W3C APIs that can give you that. So, I gave you 3 or 4 examples, but there's actually a long list of such examples which automotive as a category is bringing or posing as requirements for any OS, and Tizen fundamentally has addressed most of these. And we actually have, in Tizen today, Tizen IVI today, most of these requirements are actually existing, and we're still developing it, and in the upcoming releases, many more are coming.
Good. So we've talked a little bit about Tizen being very well suited for multi-profile. Let's talk a little bit about that. And of course, the first question that I want to ask is going to be to Sungjin here. If Tizen does support multiple profiles, what is Samsung's roadmap of Tizen devices from your perspective here?
As mentioned, the camera and wearable devices already have been commercialized. And also, Samsung mobile devices will be commercialized soon. And smart TV and the smart appliances are on the Samsung roadmap also. And Samsung is focused on developing the devices. But Samsung is not only a manufacturer of types of products such as consumer electronics, and mobile and wearable and IoTs. But we are capable of creating whole new values and UX by connecting those content services with the various types of product categories.
All right, and Corey, so multiple profiles, how does that fit in with Unity and overall with your strategy?
So, I mean, we see them as kind of separate platforms, but we're going to support, right now we're working on support for Tizen Mobile and Tizen TV. That fits in best with the type of developers we usually deal with, and we're starting there.
Yep, makes sense. And I mean, one of the things that comes out of this idea of multiple profiles, build around a small core and specialize out, is that it does potentially open up some opportunities in the marketplace. So, you know, Mark, from your perspective on the Tizen Association, what do you see from that? What kind of opportunities?
Well, it's an open source platform. It allows all the stakeholders to contribute content and features in the direction of the OS, which is great. So we strongly believe in the Tizen Association. This will facilitate some new innovations that perhaps some of the closed ecosystems can't duplicate or can contend with. Also, because Tizen is liberated from any one particular vendor, it allows operators, carriers, and device manufacturers kind of flexibility in the end product design and the service design. It also allows ISVs to do on-device features and services, which is kind of really important for them in what is a pretty crowded and competitive market. And then the kind of third area is the great opportunity in developing, or the HTML5 developing ecosystem as well. So it allows developers to build apps that can be deployed on various screens and connected devices, which is something that continues to be needed as we go over more diverse device platforms come online and we start seeing them come to market.
Sure. I'm glad you brought up ecosystems, because that's a good bridge into the next series of questions here. Again, going back to Sungjin here, so looking at ecosystems, they're obviously very important for any mobile environment. So what sort of activities are going on within Samsung to strengthen the Tizen developer ecosystem in particular?
Okay, we have been engaging the Tizen developers so far through various types of Tizen developer program with Intel and the Linux Foundation. And to be more specific, we operated the Tizen Conference and Tizen Developer Conference, Tizen Developer Summit annually, and local dev lab of various countries to providing a chance for the app developers to get trained with how to develop the Tizen applications. So that kind of activities is very important to build up the Tizen developer ecosystem. We have been so far to healthy ecosystem is with the engagement of third-party developers and partners. It is all of our activities so far.
Okay. Yeah, just out of curiosity, who's been to a Tizen Dev Lab here? Got a few. Okay, so if you're actually interested in developing, deploying apps for Tizen, the Dev Labs are an incredible opportunity. At the Linux Foundation, we talk a lot about collaboration and about how important it is to actually talk to each other. But the one thing that actually works better than collaboration is actually being taught by one of the experts. And that when Sungjin talks about Dev Labs, that's the exact idea. It's a multi-hour session. Somebody who really understands Tizen and really understands development will walk you through the SDK, walk you through creating an app and then deploying that app and actually getting it into the Tizen store and going through all the stuff like generating certificates and whatnot, deploying onto the device. If there's one around you, and I know that there are a few that are coming up here, it really is a great way to get an introduction, a hands-on introduction to the Tizen platform. With all that in mind, I actually have a follow-on question for you here about what expectations you have for the Tizen developer community. Can you talk a little bit about what Samsung would anticipate here and expect?
Yeah, I think the two-way communication is very important, especially for the Tizen developer communities. We already have been communicating with many types of developer relations. We have and also, we'd like to suggest for the app developer participate in the developer community to build a healthy ecosystem together. We are communicating with developers various ways. At first, we get started to issue the monthly Tizen newsletter to deliver the latest technology of and trend to the developers. And secondly, we developers can learn the key technology of Tizen through the webinar in the developer site. And lastly, developers can get the development device through the device unit program in the Tizen developer site, and also access to the remote test lab devices powered by Samsung. With Samsung as a partner in building the ecosystem, we are continuously working actively with Tizen developers, app developers.
Yeah. The remote test lab is a really powerful tool too. I mean, if you don't have a Tizen device in hand, you can't actually deploy on a real device. It's not in front of you, it's in a lab somewhere, but it is actually being deployed. So you can see the same thing that the app, that the store would see when they're evaluating it. Okay, and Mahesh, let's talk a little bit about platform development. I don't mean to say that Samsung's not involved in platform development, of course, but Intel has been very focused, particularly on the IVI platform. Can you talk a little bit about what expectations you have for the Tizen platform community?
Sure. So I think, just to add to what Sungjin said, there is something unique about Tizen, which is it is giving the developer the capability to try to land their work on multiple platforms. And it's doing that in a way which is 100% open. So one thing you might have noticed, people, especially if you work with Tizen 3, which is where we're developing IVI right now, and the rest of the profiles are going to get migrated to Tizen 3. So if you guys don't know, there's Tizen 2. So there's open source project and there are products. There are Tizen 2.x open source project stream of development, and a lot of productization efforts are happening on top of that. And the project is also moving forward with Tizen 3.x development. With Tizen 3.x, the development is completely open, 100% open. You can see every day's code. There is the developers, people who are writing that code are not doing it in a private branch and then moving it there. They're doing it in 100%. You can see the code from day to day. You can see the builds from day to day. You can see the snapshots from day to day. So it gives you the unique capability to come in early, to basically, suggest ideas, or basically put your hand up and say, this should be done differently. I can guarantee you, and I have been in a developer community in there before, where I've seen we wanted to do something, but the platform or the OS just doesn't support it yet. Here is your chance to actually influence us early in the development cycle so that we can actually build the platform support you want, and build it in a way which allows you to target multiple device categories. Go back to what I said at the beginning. 50 billion devices. If you believe it or we don't have to believe the number. But the bottom line is there are going to be billions of connected and smart devices in 6 years' time, and they don't come from one device category. Developers have to learn a way of how to monetize across device categories, and this is your opportunity.
Yeah, and to expand on that a little bit as well, the question that we get a lot is, at what point can code actually be contributed to Tizen? And with any open source project, not necessarily Tizen, this is true of the Linux kernel, it's true of pretty much everything that actually gets packaged into a product, you have two distinct phases of development. You have the platform development, which is the open source part of it, and then you have the commercialization. So to Mahesh's point, the platform development for 3.0 is what's happening right now. Work that you do now in the Tizen 3.0 branch is the sort of thing that will go into products once commercialization starts. So, it really is a good opportunity to get your ideas, if you are a Linux platform developer, get your ideas in and get them in early, because it would have downstream effects. But speaking of deploying on multiple platforms, Corey, I think they're singing your song here. So talk a little bit here about what the benefits are for an app developer who makes a Tizen game using the Unity SDK.
The biggest benefits is that, we're cross-platform, and, Tizen being a brand new platform, it's really good for people who are trying. It's a crowded market out there for content. There's billions of apps, and there's, I don't even know how many hundreds every second, coming out. And with every new platform, there's an opportunity for you to be the first out there, to be the first one noticed on that platform. And then as that platform grows, you grow with it. And so it's a really good opportunity there. And then, of course, just using Unity in general, our goal is to make it so that you don't have to think about what platform you're building for. So you can just build your game. You don't have to worry about Tizen 2, Tizen 3, sorry Mahesh. You know, we just update Unity and we say, hey, we now support this, and then you just say, okay, I just need a new build that's with the updated SDK, done, and you don't have to change anything. So for instance, we said they're upgrading from the old framework to the new framework. We don't expect that any of our beta users will actually have to worry about that. They're just kind of making their game, which is what we hope that they do, is just they want to make a game, they don't want to make an engine. So we'll give them an update at some point and say, hey, we finished the new port to the EFL, go ahead and kick out a new build, and they're done. There may be some additional work, obviously, because it's a change and we're still in beta, but for the most part, it should be that easy, and they don't have to worry about it. And as I said, like, we want to make sure that our developers using us can just focus on making their game. So with Unity, you get rendering, physics, you know, audio. You don't have to build any of that stuff. You don't have to build it to a multitude of platforms. You can just build to Unity and make what you want to make.
Great. So, Mark, let's talk a little bit about success factors for Tizen, and you know, from your perspective, from the Tizen Association perspective. Where are we? What sorts of things should be improved in order to increase the likelihood of success here for Tizen?
Okay, well, remember, in the people within the Tizen Association, we're always kind of considering the customer. Okay, so we need to make sure that the customer experience is optimized in a way that best meets their kind of unique demands and needs. Customer experience is going to differ across the ecosystem and connected devices, so we've been trying to work really closely with the OEMs and the carriers and the developers to make that successful as possible, whereas kind of seamless communication and experience from device to device delivers a completely cohesive picture. So that's kind of really important from the business perspective. Obviously, the other thing is we want to encourage the open source community to keep pushing the boundaries, to keep making Tizen great, to build on the successes we've already had, but also kind of keep working with the ecosystem partners and encourage the uptake of the Tizen platform on all device types and with other OEMs as well.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes left, and I've got a series of questions here that I'm going to ask to various people on the panel. The first one, though, is this is it's kind of a big one. I wish we had some dramatic music for this because it's a question that gets asked a lot. Mobile is a particularly interesting segment because there are two large ecosystems and quite a few smaller ones. How do you see this market evolving? I think, Sungjin, let's start with you.
I think the mobile ecosystem is already saturated. However, there will be more players jumping into the mobile ecosystem with a different approach of their solution. So I think from now, so something unique and differentiated things should be considered very carefully in order to make a success story in this saturated marketplace.
That makes sense. So having a platform that enables you to do unique and different things is generally a good thing. Mark, it'd be interesting to get your perspective on this as well, given that you are, represent operators and manufacturers.
Yeah, I think the discussion within the operators is that things have moved beyond mobile already, into the larger connected device ecosystem. The mobile by itself it's still a hub, and it's probably the kind of the center of the hub. But we're already seeing other devices, the wearables. It's kind of a really interesting business model for the operators. So we're kind of trying to work it out, and we need to be relevant in that place. But the story goes beyond the mobile piece. And what we think is really interesting with the Tizen, that it's kind of difficult to take an old operating system and just slap it onto a watch. So when you've got Tizen that's built up with those profiles in mind, it puts it in a really strong position for the future.
Sure. Corey, from Unity's perspective, what's your position, or do you even have a position in this as to whether there's room for additional ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to before. Each new ecosystem is a new opportunity for developers to, get out there first, and get noticed. From a Unity perspective, it is, it's great for us to have, different, platforms to support, and it's more value we can bring to our users. From a personal perspective, I have like 9 devices that can do things attached to my TV. So it's really good to have an ecosystem that people can design for all those types of interactions at once instead of individually.
Yeah. Mark, do you think, looking at the global OS market, this is just taking one step deeper here. Is there room for Tizen?
Yeah, we've kind of talked about a little bit. At the moment, the other OSs are just trying to work out and splatting it onto the device. So, we think definitely that Tizen being built with different profiles in mind gives it that kind of unique opportunity. And there's still lots of other device profiles we're still waiting to come into market. The TV we're seeing, but I'm looking forward to the refrigerator and the printer and the goodness knows what else. So I think we're just at the start of that whole, call it whatever you like, connected objects, new profiles or whatever, but there's a real opportunity here. So yes, I do think there's an opportunity for another OS in these different profiles.
Sure. Sungjin, how about you?
Yeah, Tizen is a new and challengeable platform in the market. So, but however, Tizen is competitive from its openness, from its technology point of view and business point of view. Technology point of view, the Tizen is a fully open source project. So there may be many chances for app developers or platform developers to contribute any their modules in the Tizen platform itself. And also the business perspective, Tizen is a developer-friendly store ecosystem with revenue share is 100% from the launching the device. So that's the, for example, case.
Okay. Mahesh, I've left you alone for a little bit. I put you back in the hot seat here. One of the questions that I actually get a lot, because I deal a lot with the developers, both on application side and platform side. Tizen clearly has 2 very strong entities in it between Intel and Samsung. So I get the question, is Tizen for Intel and Samsung only? So from your perspective here, how would you answer that?
So, in summary, no. It's not for Intel and Samsung only. Yes, Intel and Samsung has been doing, both the companies have been doing a lot of development on Samsung. So first of all, let me actually remove the notion that Intel and Samsung are the only companies. If you actually look into the IVI profile today, and I'm just going to talk about things that are public already, there are car OEMs who are actually putting code in Tizen. Your biggest car OEM, Toyota, they are a user of Tizen, but not only are they a user of Tizen, they're actually contributing a lot of that code back to Tizen. Jaguar Land Rover is another example of that. And then there are a few of their suppliers called Tier 1s who actually sell systems to car OEMs. So they're actually contributing code into Tizen already, and they're doing it. And one of the things that has helped that is as we have made this transition from 2 to 3 and gone into a 100% open development model, there's ways for everybody to contribute. I think IVI has made that beginning because IVI was the first profile we were working on 3.0. As we move other profiles into 3.0, I think that should, it should be seamless for anybody to contribute into Tizen. So no, absolutely not. We don't want it to be an Intel and Samsung thing only, and it is not an Intel and Samsung thing only in IVI today.
Absolutely. Well, and also Tizen is the reference distribution for automotive-grade Linux, and it's compatibility with some other major automotive structures as well. The other thing also that I think is not always readily apparent is that there are a number of open source hackers, particularly in Europe, who've seen participating in the platform development, which is really encouraging as well. That is the real test of, is your structure proper in order to encourage other people to get involved? Do people get involved? And we are seeing that, and it's really encouraging. Sungjin, from your perspective, how would you answer that question about whether Tizen is Samsung and Intel only?
I agree with Mahesh's opinion. As a new platform, Samsung and Intel actually have been involved in the leading to the Tizen platform and ecosystem together. But the Tizen Association member is a carrier and vendors and OEM manufacturers, and they are very working hard to make an awareness to the Tizen new platform to the industry area and adoption to the service company. And also, there are program called this partner program in the Tizen Association Industry Consortium. There are more than 100 device manufacturer or service provider or enabler companies had already joined. One of the big companies is Unity, and you can see the outside many well-known companies are there already joined.
Okay. All right, my little gizmo here says I have 1 minute and 14 seconds left. So this will be the last question. Looking forward, and starting with you down on the end there, Mark. So we're 3 years into Tizen now. 3 years from now, what constitutes success? What would you expect to see for Tizen to be a successful platform here?
I think we've talked a lot about the additional profiles and kind of bits out there, so I'm not going to cover that. I think the important thing from the Tizen Association that we're kind of delivering technologies that have been adopted by OEMs and operators, and not just Samsung, things like that. So it's a real kind of key, giving the consumers an opportunity to use Tizen in mobile, but in smart home, in other IoT, across a range of, or delivered by a range of operators and a range of OEMs as well. So we'd really like to see it, kind of blossoming into a much bigger, wider used platform.
Great. Mahesh?
So Brian, to your earlier question when you asked, is there room for a third ecosystem, right? And I'd like to state, actually, there aren't two existing ecosystems in Internet of Things. Yeah. When you talk about phones, yes, but when you talk about broader device categories, there aren't existing ecosystems. And what I would like to see 3 years from now, that Tizen has it. Of course, there is the usual metric, hey, do we have market share? And that's a given. The second thing is also, do we have market share actually across device categories? Because that puts us on the path of targeting the bigger opportunity rather than a slice of the opportunity, and that's the challenge in front of Tizen.
Corey, 3 years from now.
I think just having an equitable share of the market is a big indicator of success for any operating system like this, and not necessarily on any one platform, but across multiple platforms. So, yeah.
Good. And Sungjin?
During 3 years, Tizen project team already released not only the mobile SDK and platform, but the wearable and IVI and multi-profile, currently upcoming the profile-based platform and source code. And I think that means we are still in the middle of evolving to meet the market requirement. It's very important. So I think the ideal state of the Tizen platform, I think, is one platform for multiple device category of the product, and also it comes with the converged service, can make a differentiated product or the services. I think so.
Okay, very good. Well, I have a blinking red light here, which tells me that I guess we're done. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in today and for having this discussion. For the folks in the audience, I hope that this was enlightening. As I said at the beginning, for those of you who missed it, most of the sessions so far have been technical, and this session is really about context. So hopefully we've given some of that. Again, my name's Brian Warner. I am the Linux Foundation person who's on the Tizen project. If you have any questions, by all means, you can find me, brian@linuxfoundation.org. I'll answer anything that I can. Anything that I can't, I will tell you that I can't answer it, and I'll give you a roundabout answer. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here and thank the members of the panel.